What's up, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you so much, as always, for watching, for listening. However, you are taking in Talking Buffalo. I always appreciate you guys. A quick shout out to our sponsor for today's show, Law Office of William Mattar. Heard in a car, call William Mattar, 444-4444. Call William Mattar today to get the compensation that you deserve. This is our Friday podcast, and I'll tell you what, a couple times per year, my guest here today, Tyler Dunne from Go Long, he throws down something big with the Buffalo Bills without fail. Every year, multiple times per year, and we just got one this week, a two-parter that just dropped, a two-part series on Joe Brady. My man, you did it again. It was a great read. Here's a fun fact, too, by the way. I'm a numbers guy. 10,756 words between the two parts over the course of 2 days. TD, man, what's going on, buddy? How you doing?
Oh, it's always great to chat all things Buffalo Bills with my good friend Pat Moran. It is, we talked about it a little bit before hitting record, but whenever I do one of these stories or series and it's Bills related and I shift into, like I told you, whoring mode, you have to get the word out and reach the people. Pat Moran is the name at the forefront of the brain. So thanks so much for fitting me in and letting me spread the word. But no, yeah, I didn't know what to expect, honestly. I wanted to sit down with Joe Brady, and really year round, it's hard for these guys to find 15 minutes, the head coach of an NFL team. So I didn't really know what to expect. And we sit down, he begins the conversation by saying, I don't really like talking about myself. I'm kind of introverted, close to the vest guy. And the next thing you know, it's one story rolls into the next and the next and the next and the next. And his memory's really churning. And we talked for 2 hours, and it was only like his assistant reached out. I was like, Joe, you got to get to a meeting, man. Wrap it up. So he was unbelievably candid, open on the good, the bad, the ugly, the ups and downs, everything he's been through. So thanks so much to everybody for meandering their way over to golongtd.com to check out both stories.
Let me ask you this question, Tyler. On a kind of serious note, there is a skill in being a sports journalist. It's not just putting words and sentences and paragraphs and stories together. The good journalists, sports journalists, just regular journalists out there, they're really good at getting the subject to maybe sometimes slowly open up and tell those stories. Like you said, Joe Brady, maybe not the most extroverted person who, to the average Tom, Dick, or Joe, is just going to open up and kind of let all the stories flow. That's a skill that I'm sure has taken you probably, a lifetime, certainly a career in what you do to get people, just using Joe Brady as one example, to be able to open up and you provide you with stories and information that, the readers are going to want to consume.
I appreciate that, man. I mean, really, that's central to the job. Like, I want to have conversations. I don't want to have interviews. I want to treat these coaches and players and GMs as human beings, not as sources. And I think that there is a middle ground. I don't think we have to interlock our fingers and go to $2,100 bungalows to make that happen. There is a healthy separation between church and state to get to that place of having conversations, because it is good to get outside of the venue, as you put, or in the stadium, and cultivate sources that way and have conversations that way, not to go that direction. But I've always strived to just go a little deeper. I think the good thing is, at this point in my career, like a Joe Brady probably knows, all right, we're sitting down. It isn't just going to be, X's and O's. Right. Or, who's the matchup this week. It's going to be a little deeper. So mentally they can kind of get to a place of, all right, time for a little reflection. I just have a recorder there, but it really is us BSing and talking with no time constraints. And so, and once the stories start going and he can kind of connect his own life together here, and we just chase down these random rabbit holes, you don't really know where it's going to go. And it was, start right there in high school, or start really youth sports, where his dad is pushing the hell out of him. Yeah. I mean, and really that's kind of the basis for it is his dad was a hell of a running back and went to Clemson. It didn't work out. Thought he was going to transfer to Florida State, play for Bobby Bowden. It didn't work out. Just called his dad a knucklehead without providing too many details.
Right.
But I think his dad didn't want Joe making the same mistake he made.
Sure.
Joe the fourth, I should say. He's Joe the third, making the same mistake. So it was, like it got to the point where Joe's kind of chuckling and saying, I didn't want my own dad to draft me in baseball. I was praying somebody else would take me, because he was like sheet of paper with a pen writing down, I will not throw my bat. I will not throw my bat. I will not throw my bat, as punishment if he threw his bat on a baseball diamond. But really, he's thankful for it to this day. That relationship is something special, where he's driving home from practice, driving home from games, talking to his dad about the New York Jets defense. His dad at LSU, when Joe is the pass game coordinator, is drawing up a play like, hey, you got to incorporate this. And it was like a triple option where the running back is making the read, and Joe called him old school, and it was like a harpoon in the chest. His dad could not let that go. How dare you call that old school? So when Kyler Murray ran it with Oklahoma that year, Joe the third is giving Joe the fourth hell, like, look, they're running it. And Joe says, Dad, that's Kyler Murray. I have Joe Burrow. But then lo and behold, they run a similar play this year in Buffalo with Ty Johnson, Josh Allen leading the way. And of course, Dad reached out to him. But yes, that relationship is the basis for everything. And then it gets into that moment, really, the first seminal moment for Joe Brady. I don't mean to ramble on and on. Please.
Oh, no, please do,
interrupt
man.
anytime. The first real seminal moment for him, where if this doesn't happen, he's not the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. Who knows where his life goes? Is like he throws his arm out, shoulder out, dead arm, as a freshman. So he's quarterback his whole life. And so he transitions to receiver, and he kind of credited to not using his lower body enough throwing in baseball and football. So even to this day, he can't really throw a football that great. Don't watch him in pregames. Right. He isn't going to be gunning, howitzers left and right. And he moves to wide receiver into that junior year. That's the year you really got to make your move for colleges to notice you. They're at a camp, and they call 5 wide. He isn't even a part of that formation. So he's thinking, yikes. Where's this going? But he doesn't transfer, kind of sticks it out. They get into the season. The first game, a player gets hurt, and it's not Joe Brady's turn to go onto the field. It's somebody else's turn to play wide receiver, but he doesn't care. All instinct tells him to just go. Runs out onto the field, insubordination, catches a little 8-yard hitch, catches another pass, and another, leads the team in receiving. They lose the game, but kind of proves his point. And he gets yelled at, goes back to the bench. But then those receivers get in trouble. And then he's back out there. He catches a touchdown. So all of a sudden in Broward County, maybe the best high school football county in the nation,
I'm very
Joe Brady's
familiar with
name
it.
is right up there. That's right. You live down there, Pat.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's getting interviewed on TV. And then literally when he's done with that interview with a local Miami station, he's walking away and his leg and his glute hurts. Turns out he has a staph infection. Doesn't know where it came from. But it's to the point where that next morning, he just falls out of bed. He can't even stand up. He's rushing to the hospital, and the paramedic tells him, yeah, you might lose your leg. What? You can't tell a kid that? So his whole life is just full of these moments where, boom, go, all instinct. What do we talk about a million times in this podcast, Pat? Sean, for all the great things, Sean McDermott, all the great things he did as a head coach, clean up the culture. He really struggled with, I got to make a decision right now.
Yep.
Playoff football, 3rd down, a minute and a half left. What do I do? A lot of vacillation, a lot of over planning. You can kind of have that paralysis by analysis. I think that was one of his downfalls. Joe is a swing away from that. Joe Brady is all instinct, all go, 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 go. Let's make a decision right now. And then you kind of sprinkle in those moments of, holy hell, where's my life going? A staph infection to, he had an injury at Air Force, and he's worried about his football career. He transfers to William & Mary, another injury, and then he's not even playing, and then he gets to a coaching convention, and he's sleeping on a hotel floor, and nobody wants to hire him. And even then, he just takes charge. He's writing up these scouting reports at William & Mary, kind of forcing his hand, and for Jimmy Laycock to hire him as a linebackers coach. Really inspiring stuff. It was almost like talking to David Goggins or one of those other, freaks of nature that just take the bull by the horns of their life and do something. There's a reason Joe Brady's the head coach of the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah. I got a question for you. I do want to say this too, or, Joe from Queens, our mutual buddy, would call it ball washing for a second. Without getting into the specifics, I always find it fascinating when you get an opportunity to be able to sit down with a Joe Brady or a Sean McDermott or a Brandon Bean. It fascinates me because, especially being an independent journalist, that speaks to your stature, your career, the success of Go Long TD, your stature at One Bills Drive, through all the good, the bad, the ugly of everything, and just your stature around the league. Here's my question for you. Now, you've gotten to spend time with the most former Bills head coach in Sean McDermott, and now the new Bills head coach in Joe Brady. I feel like we kind of know some of the differences, and, you just spoke on one of them, like that bam, bam, bam kind of thing. Do you see any similarities between the two? Like for fans right now, or, maybe casual fans, are like, well, what's the biggest differences or what's the biggest similarities between these coaches? What have you found from your conversations and what you've learned about these guys?
It's a good question because we talk about the differences. I'm sure we'll get into those differences.
Mm-hmm.
It's a major reason why he was hired. But there are similarities. I think that both to their core want to bring a trophy to the region, to the city of Buffalo. They get it. Even Sean, I mean, that was real. We sat in his office ahead of the playoffs in 2024. I mean, he was almost in tears about what it would mean to bring Bills fans that hardware. I mean, that dedication. What was real from Sean McDermott? Say whatever you will.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that is always the case for head coaches. I mean, he was in it for those right reasons. Joe Brady, very similar. And he's been here now 4 years, 2 months. I think he gets it as a South Florida guy. That walking into work in the shorts, all that stuff's real, by the way. It's not for show. He walks in with shorts and his fast twitch energy drinks, which we got him on record, how much caffeine he ingests per day. The team nutritionist said his heart's not in danger, but yikes. 4 bottles of fast twitch, 2 espresso, 2 caffeine gum. And that's just the off season. The regular season, everything goes up.
That's crazy.
So yeah, I think that's the similarity is that. And that's a good baseline is he genuinely cares. He is going to pour his heart and soul into this thing. I think he, like Sean McDermott, is dedicated as a father and values family. It's not just talk. They're this offseason. Think about Joe Brady's offseason, Pat. I almost called you Joe, where you lose to Denver and they're crushing fashion. Your boss, the head coach, is fired. You're the first interview. All right. And then you're interviewing with the Raiders. You're interviewing with the Ravens. You want to be the Buffalo Bills head coach. You have your office there. They interview you a second time. I think he was there physically at One Bills Drive. That was when Terry Pagula, Brandon Bean, Pico Elliott, they were all down in Florida. So they're zooming back to him. And then you get hired. You got the introductory press conference. Then you got to hire a staff, right? You're trying to hire the best staff you can. And then you get into free agency. And then you're into the draft. So it's been a runaway freight train. But it also hit him as a dad. He was looking at pictures recently. He's got a 3-year-old son, and I think his daughter's now 5 or 6 months. And he's like, holy hell. Man, I miss such a chunk of my son's life, the growth and development. He's looking at pictures from a summer vacation that they took. And so he wants to be there as much as he can, beyond the Mike McDonald 30 minutes a week. Remember that viral comment?
Yeah.
These guys you got to be a psycho to be an NFL head coach. That's just a profession. So what Joe Brady's been doing all offseason is he gets up at 3 a.m., gets to the facility by 3:15, 3:20 a.m. at the latest. And then that way he can get home, whatever it is, around 6:30 for the bath time, the bedtime routine. And on a personal level, I'm sure you can attest to this. I know that Joe from Queens can absolutely attest to this. The witching hour is real. We were sharing, old battle stories, war stories. And so when he puts his boy down, it's like he's reading him book after book after book after book to the point of, okay, we're going to turn the lamp off. And then we're going to get the phone out and use the flashlight to read another book and slowly get you tired and more tired and more tired. And then, okay, the eyelids are shut and now you're asleep. I mean, we live it with Sonny here. Sonny's big on the bedtime stories. We got to make up
Yeah.
stories for him before he finally goes down. So, I mean, that was just a cool little thing that shows, like, look, he's trying to make it all work, right? Like Joe Brady is trying to be the best coach he can be, the best dad he can be. That's where they're similar.
Sure.
Do you want to get into the differences by chance?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that, okay, outside looking in, OC gets hired, interim in-house candidate, quote unquote, gets hired. You might think more of the same. What are the Bills doing, right? It was not a popular pick nationally. It wasn't a popular pick locally. I mean, I know Joe B, our buddy, did a poll on Twitter, like yay or nay, and it was single digits yay.
Yeah.
Channel 2 or Channel 4, I can't remember which one had a poll, single digits approval. So, yeah, it was, I think you read the story. It was like getting the new pair of socks on Christmas Day if those socks were soaked in the urinal trough at Old Rich Stadium on a hot summer day. I mean, that's kind of what the news was.
Yeah.
But the more you look at it, Pat, it is this massive pendulum swing away from what you had. All the stuff we just got into, the decision-making, it needs to be instinctual. That's why Terry Pegula and Brandon Beane and they put all these coaches through that game management test. And he passed that test. Now there's no simulating 60,000 fans and you can't hear yourself think. We'll see how Joe Brady does in that department. But
sure,
I think who he is as a human being, he's a quick decision maker. But I'll tell you what, number one, I think it's the relationship with Josh Allen. I think that is valued. There's a reason Josh Allen was sitting in those interviews. The Snow Angels was always a red herring. The relationship, it was fire and ice. I mean, they're very different personalities.
Yeah.
That was back to the McDermott problem series in 2023. That was kind of what really wasn't discussed nearly as much as I thought it would be. Like how icy that is when Sean McDermott's walking into a meeting with coaches and bitching and complaining about Josh Allen building a house and saying, you got to tell him when the season starts, it's Brittany. Brittany's got to worry about that house, his ex-girlfriend at the time. So it's like bizarre, and repeatedly was told from coaches, other people in Sean McDermott's orbit, that he just couldn't really wrap his head around that Josh Allen is like, there's only 2 or 3 of these humans on the planet. Like he just couldn't understand, like change that calculus, right? Like we need to operate through him. He really thought he was central to it. The word that was even used to me by a source close to the head coach after the fact, after he was fired, is that he viewed Josh Allen as a quote unquote burden, which is kind of crazy to think about. MVP of the league, future Hall of Fame quarterback, in my opinion. But look, it's the most important relationship in sports. Who's ever right, who's ever wrong. And Josh Allen's a golden retriever, right? He isn't going to go to the podium and rip his own head coach. He doesn't even shake his head when a wide receiver drops a pass. So no, the public isn't going to know much about this at all. That's why I report this stuff and it's like, whoa, where did that come from? Well, Josh is going to say all the right things. Sean's, for the most part, going to say all the right things, but behind the scenes, I was told it just wasn't great. So if you're going to win a Super Bowl, that relationship has to be special. Like, go right through history. Bradshaw, Knoll, Walsh, Montana, Favre, Holmgren, Reed, Mahomes, even Brady and Belichick. It's like, yeah, it was icy at the end. It was contentious, but like Tom Brady's his 6th round pick. He comes in. I had a player who played for Buffalo and New England kind of break this down where like he's kind of institutionalized the Bills' ways. So everything that Bill says, he's going to be a good little soldier. Everybody else is going to be a good little soldier. And it works in its own way. Allen and McDermott they never figured that out, where Joe Brady's been with Josh Allen for 4 years and 2 months. Joe Brady kind of broke down that first meeting where he's nervous himself and a little rigid, a little uptight. Josh cracks a joke to loosen him up and to get him into a good place. What was the joke? He said, well, we were talking about pass protections and I said a number and Josh's joke was based off of that number. So you can surmise whatever you'd like there. But over time, they've gotten to a point where it is a very solid working relationship, an excellent working relationship to the point where Joe can get on Josh. Josh can be honest with Joe. I think if you would have gone with a totally different coach, Grant Udinsky, whoever, you're kind of hitting reset totally on a really good thing. Right. The most important thing the head coach quarterback relationship. So I get finding somebody who has worked with Josh Allen day in and day out and not wanting to restart that. So what? You bring in somebody new, maybe they aren't to that place of total transparency and honesty until age 33, 34 for Josh Allen. Look, time will tell. Who knows? There's a lot of questions that Joe Brady still needs to answer. But I think the Bills went into this really valuing that relationship and choosing Joe Brady.
I'm glad that you approach it that way too, because my personal opinion from reading both parts, my biggest takeaway was the relationship between Joe Brady and Josh Allen feels vastly different than the relationship was between Josh Allen and Sean McDermott. No question about it. I found it's only a little nugget, but I personally, just from remembering the McDermott series a couple of years ago, that I found a little bit kind of like ironically cool is former Bills wide receiver coach Chad Hall, because in the polarizing McDermott stories going back a couple of years ago, again, to this day, one of the most talked about Bills article series ever. Anyway, you discussed the less than favorable reaction from sources when the Bills wide receiver room chipped in and got Chad Hall a vehicle. They gifted him, I believe it was a truck. And Sean didn't love that. Let's just put it that way. In this Brady piece that just dropped, in the first part, you referenced a college running back named Chad Hall, who tore up Notre Dame, my squad, Notre Dame, 142 yards or 32 carries with Air Force, and that kind of being a factor in Brady wanting to go to Air Force. Didn't work out there. He was there briefly, ended up at William and Mary. But I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I kind of found a little subtle irony in that.
Dude, you can't tell me things don't happen for a reason. There were several moments like that as we kind of explored Joe Brady's rise and his path and everything that led to Buffalo. That was one of them. So he's on his recruiting visit, and Chad Hall's the senior there. They're watching film of him tearing up Notre Dame, like you said. Yeah. And Joe's thinking he's coming in as a receiver, and he's like, yeah, all of a sudden I'm doing running back drills myself. So where's this thing going? And he had an injury and then had the transfer. But another one would be, so the coaching convention he went to in Nashville. It's a national convention. It moves to different city every year. And that's when he is kind of like the fourth wheel, staying at a buddy's hotel room, sleeping on the carpet floor, hard as concrete, just begging for a job, thinking he's going to get a job. And it really left him, quote unquote, depressed. Like, am I even going to be a coach after this thing? Because he couldn't get any nibbles at all. He's sending his resume all over the place. Nobody wants him. At that convention, who was honored as like the small school coach of the year? Craig Bohl. So he was with North Dakota State at the time. And then he goes to Wyoming, and he's the coach who then takes a chance on Josh Allen. And kind of another ironic twist, that year, I believe, is when Josh Allen is trying to put himself out there around the same time, and nobody wants Josh Allen. So right at the same time that nobody really wanted Joe Brady, nobody wanted Josh Allen out of high school. And I think they're kind of kindred spirits that way. They had the same kind of upbringing where, look, D1, D2, D3, nobody wanted Josh Allen originally. Eventually, JUCO, Wyoming, Craig Bohl takes that chance. Joe Brady returned from that convention, went back to William and Mary, and then went to Jimmy Laycock and was like, hey, this position is opening up on your staff. I'd love to be that coach. And Jimmy Laycock had this rule, not really, he's never done it. He's never hired players directly to his staff because he wants there to be a little bit of a buffer. He thinks like they'd be buddies and it wouldn't work out. But they knew Joe's work ethic, and Joe Brady kind of insisted. And then Jimmy Laycock said, okay, you're going to be one of three candidates for this assistant linebacker's job. And I'll decide at some point after graduation, but get out of here, go home, relax. And Joe's like, oh, hell no, I'm not going to like waste this opportunity. So he didn't go home. He stayed there at the facility, literally broke down film of every single one of William and Mary's opponents that 2013 season, and wrote up scouting reports. Didn't know a damn thing about linebacker play. Didn't know much about defense, but kind of applied that offensive acumen to the defensive side of the ball, breaking down. Like West Virginia was on their schedule. The year prior was Geno Smith, Stedman Bailey, Tavon Austin. So I think he showed them like some outside the box thoughts. And once they got into the season, he had a totally different perspective. I talked to another coach on that William and Mary's staff who I think it was Scott Boone, the DC, who's like, yeah, like he would kind of show us things in a way we weren't even thinking. Like, no, the offense is trying to do this because of this. And their defense was great that year. And then his role increases. And then boom, after that, Penn State grad assistant, New Orleans Saints, LSU, Carolina Panthers, Buffalo Bills.
It sounds to me like you're, not that you didn't have a good opinion of Joe Brady before your sit down with him, but it sounds to me like you getting the opportunity to sit down and get to know him on a different level. Maybe that's changed your opinion even a little bit more favorably. Like we just talked about a handful of minutes ago, the original news of the Joe Brady hire, not liked by a lot, or I would say at least it didn't really move the needle. I think we could safely say that with Bills fans. You know what I mean? They wanted something, I think, for the most part, different. But do you feel like getting to know him a little bit personally and talking football with him, one-on-one for an extended period of time like you did, that maybe that changed a little bit what you think of Joe Brady and what you think of this hire for the Bills?
Right. I didn't really know him that well. Yeah. We've chatted briefly in the past. Honestly, I kind of joked to Joe about this. I'm like, yeah, I didn't really go to any of your press conferences as OC. And he's like, good, because I don't say anything at all on purpose.
Yeah.
Right. He kind of said, I'm the worst person at the podium ever. Because his goal in that setting is just protect the players, take full accountability, which in a way is a little refreshing too. Yes. Sean McDermott didn't always do that, especially in those playoff moments.
Yep.
So like that's the sole purpose for that. But to kind of chat with him in a more intimate setting, one-on-one, more conversational, you're going to learn a lot about somebody, at the human level. All that said, I reached out to a former Bill who was a key source for me in part 3 of that McDermott Problem series. Somebody who really opened up my eyes and I guess in concert, everybody's eyes to that McDermott-Allen dynamic because he saw it up close. And this, I'll say this about this player, not to give him away. This player knew both really well. Like he liked Sean and he liked Josh. So that's why I really took his opinion. Seriously, and kind of directed that direction. He's like, look, everybody loves Joe. He said all the players love Joe Brady, and he's still plugged in with all these guys. But then he brought up like these 4 things that are unknowns. Like, and look, nobody knows game management wise, how does Joe Brady handle those? Like he did great in the interview process, but like Brian Daboll, that was a problem for him going 20-40-1 with the Giants. Like the Giants had a lot of problems,
sure,
but he cost him some games. And I think that probably hurt him in this opportunity to become the Bills head coach. It's hard to get past that. You don't know how you're going to perform until you're in that spot. The pressure is going to be heavy. I mean, I just did a pod with Jay Skursky. We were getting to all this too. Like it's Super Bowl or bust. Like really, I mean, that's kind of the bar for anybody walking into this. After 9 years of Sean McDermott, 9 years of banging on that wall, Super Bowl wall, like trying to bust it down. So how does he handle that? Right, there's a lot of different variables here. It's hard to really, like conflict. When conflict comes up during the course of a year, how does he handle it? And does he have coaches who can kind of look after his blind spots? Right, every young first-time head coach needs that, and Joe Brady's really confident he's got that in a Pete Carmichael, who's been at Sean Payton's side for so long. Drew Brees, he's like, look, when Drew Brees is inducted into Canton, Pete Carmichael's going to be sitting right there. So I think he's doing like everything that he possibly can to set himself up for success. And everything is aligned. You hear that word all the time for a reason. Owner, GM, coach, quarterback, and it hasn't been aligned. So this is about as good of a chance as the Buffalo Bills have to win a Super Bowl since 13 seconds, in my opinion. Like they really, I mean, I don't care what anybody else is doing in the conference. They've got their own house in order, finally. And I like what they did in free agency. We'll see what they do in the draft. Defense, right? That's kind of getting into the nitty gritty. They got to work in a new defense, but where it matters most, I think they finally have synergy, harmony. Use any word you want.
The part 2 of your series where they got to play us. I said, my biggest takeaway from the read was the relationship difference between head coach and quarterback. The other thing, my other big takeaway is after reading, I get a stronger sense than I already had that Joe Brady, well, you're right. It remains to be seen what's going to happen in the big pivotal moments. We have to see that. But I get a sense that he's going to play to win in the biggest moments. Whereas I think there were times where Sean McDermott played to not lose, to not blow it. I kind of feel like that's going to be a takeaway. Let me ask you this question too, as we're winding down here. And by the way, I mean, everyone can see it on the video side, but on the audio side, golongtd.com, go there, subscribe. This Joe Brady piece, this two-parter alone is worth a subscription, let alone all the other stuff that Tyler puts out all the time. But let me ask you this, kind of semi-switch gear a little bit. You know, this pod's mostly about Buffalo stuff, but this doesn't have to be a Buffalo answer. What story have you written over the past year or maybe the past few years that you personally have had the most fun to do? And I'm going to preface it by saying this. Again, you're doing like a press junket right now because you just dropped a new movie. And every actor, when they're on the press junket, their current movie is their favorite movie ever. So it can't be Joe Brady. You're not allowed to say Joe Brady. What has been your favorite story? It doesn't have to be necessarily the biggest or the most read one. Well, what's been your personal favorite story that you've put together recently that you've enjoyed, that you had a lot of fun doing?
Boy, great question. You know, I love sitting down with players, and often over a meal, everybody's happy when they're eating food, right? Like, and doing those stories. At the same time, though, you know what comes to mind, and fun is an interesting word because there was a little bit of an aftermath to this one. like there was back in 2023, right, with the McDermott series.
Yeah.
But like this point last year, I was just living in the world of the Chicago Bears. And I talked to 32 people in all about, now I know the Caleb Williams stuff because he's Caleb Williams. That's what generates the headlines. And granted, his coaches did not have the most savory things to say about him in year one. But those who read the 3 parts, they kind of saw that it was about far more than just Caleb Williams. I mean, Ryan Poles as general manager, Kevin Warren as the president, George McCaskey as the owner. And I just think like trying to push the rock and talk to another GM or another scout or another coach or another player, like you hear something and then you take it this direction and that direction. It becomes like, it's like the hunt. I'll never forget being an intern at the Buffalo News back in the day. And that was something that Bucky Gleason said he loved. It's like, it's the hunt. It's the search. It's like you hear something interesting, then boom, what's next? And there were so many moments through the reporting on that series, House of Dysfunction, where you'd hear something just batshit crazy that Ryan Poles did, or Caleb Williams, or Kevin Warren, or George. And it's like, okay, let's have another conversation and another. I think that was 27,000 words. And I spent a good 6-7 months reporting on it. I find myself saying 6-7 all the time. Just like the kid, I blame the kids for that, by the way. But like, there's a lot left on the cutting room floor too. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I didn't use. So and then you're on your own. You're independent, and it's like when you hit publish on those stories, similar to that McDermott series, like, holy shit,
you never know.
It's going to be a day, or it's going to be a week, or it's going to be a month, or in both of those cases, it's going to be a year. Because like Caleb Williams would play poor for like 3.5 quarters. And then he would be freaking Hall of Fame Canton in 2 minutes, which, by the way, his coaches, year one, who said like his work ethic was bad and he wouldn't pay attention in meetings and we had to dumb things down and coddle, they would say like 2-minute drill, he's unbelievable. Like if you could just go full 2-minute drill Caleb, that he's great. And that's kind of how the season unfolded. They would keep games close. They'd force some turnovers. And, they'd be playing the Cincinnati Bengals late, and then boom, there's Colson Loveland bouncing off Geno Smith and, going off to the end zone. Geno Stone. And anyways, it was an interesting experience. But I will think there is an intense desire, an intense curiosity from NFL fans to know what's happening behind the scenes. Like you said earlier, it's not always going to be pretty. But there's one NFL that is portrayed, at podiums and press conferences and on social media. And then there's the real world is cutthroat. It's ruthless.
Yeah.
And so I try to hurl myself into that world and see what we can find.
I love it, man. And yeah, you never know. You never know what's going to happen. You never know when you hit publish on a story. You never know when you hit send on a tweet what could end up happening. I don't know if you caught this yesterday, but so the Sabres, they break their playoff drought, and they had Receipts Day with the Sabres Twitter account, and they were throwing out a bunch of receipts, and it was fun. Picolelli, one quote tweet, just one. He goes, I got one to add, and it was me. It was me. He quote tweeted me from 2 years ago. Basically, and to be fair, my tweet wasn't wrong. It was just about, this team stinks. The arena's dead. You got a lot of work to do, buddy. Kind of one of those. And he uses one receipt, and he even had hashtag receipt day. His one quote tweet was to quote tweet me. It was really
a badge of honor, Pat.
That's it was. And look, I owned it. I had fun with it. I think they deserve to have their fun. Congratulations on their success. I didn't take it personal. It was all good fun. Actually reached out to me and offered tickets to Wednesday night's finale. I couldn't go. I had another commitment. But anyway, really cool from Picolelli. Yeah, but you never know sometimes when you hit tweet what the fallout or whatever is going to be. Last thing for you here, then I'm going to let you go. You got something going on, which I just found out about like an hour or so ago. But next Wednesday, the draft eve, you got a meetup going on. Tell people about that. People want to come check
hell
out.
Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity. Come on out, everyone. Wednesday, draft eve, Wayland Brewing Company.
I love that
We'll
place.
be there. Me and Jim Monas, ex-Eagle Scout, Saint Scout, director personnel with the Bills. Hopefully you know him by now. He's just the absolute best, a mensch. So we'll be there podcasting. And after that, we'll just drink beers, talk football. Hopefully there'll be some hockey on too. I can't wait. It's, every time we do one of those, and you came out a couple years ago, it was the last time we did it, I think.
Fatty Bear, right?
At Fatty.
Yeah.
I mean, we did one ahead of the Ravens playoff game, but it's been a while since, I got together with readers and subscribers, and I just love that sense of community. So I'll have some go-long shirts too. We'll do some draft trivia, have some fun. And my buddy Matt Piazza, who works at Wayland, we commiserated, discussed. First 25 who show up, get a beer.
Nice.
So, beer on the house.
Nice. I'm a big fan of that place. I live like 6 minutes from there. I'll be there too. I'm definitely going to stop by and come see you and Jim next Wednesday. Yeah, that's a really cool place. It's a good time. I like that a lot. So everyone, Wayland Brewery next Wednesday, starting, I believe, at 5 p.m. Tyler and Dunne, or Jim will do a podcast. Like I said, we're hanging out with people who want to come up, say hi, make sure you do. Tyler won't bite. I don't think anyway. And by the way, I will say this. As we're recording, the Sabres schedule is still not fully out, but I do know they're not going to be playing on Wednesday, Game 3. That much I do know, because Demi Lovato does have a concert in Boston on Wednesday night. So I'm expecting, we know Sunday's Game 1. Game 2, I think, is going to be Tuesday. I don't know if Game 3 is going to be Thursday or Friday. It's going to interfere with one of the nights of the draft, but it definitely won't be Wednesday. So if you're a Sabres fan wondering if that's going to conflict with going up to Wayland to see Tyler and his friends, it won't. So anyway, make sure you go there. Make sure you go to golongtd.com, subscribe, follow Tyler on Twitter at Ty Dunne. Always a good time, buddy. I appreciate you, man. One of my favorites.
Hey, you're one of my favorites, Pat Moran. Thanks so much for having me, and thanks so much for your legion of podcast listeners. You built up a talking Buffalo empire. Thanks, everybody, for reading and subscribing. That's how we keep this thing going, man. We don't have any ads, any sponsors, no gambling this or that. So it's all powered by the people. I can't thank Buffalonians enough for fueling everything we do at Go Long.
All right, Tyler, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for watching, for listening. Going to have a bonus Saturday episode coming right back at you tomorrow. Talk to you then.